Hi, grade 4. Today we're going to be talking about circle graphs. So we're going to go over vocabulary for fractions again. So we have a fraction, which it names a part of a whole. So 4/8 is a part of a whole. Then we have our numerator, which is our top number of a fraction and tells how many parts in a whole are being considered. So 4 and 4/8 is our numerator. And then we have our denominator, which is the bottom number of a fraction. It tells the total number of equal parts in a whole. So 8 and 4/8 is the denominator. And then we have our circle graph. So it shows how a whole is divided into parts. So it shows us our fractions. So Miss Van Leeuwenhoek wants to make a circle graph for the 16 birds with different feather colors she sees in her backyard. Out of those 16 birds, 12 birds have black feathers. So let's make the fraction for 12 birds out of the 16 that have black feathers. So our numerator would be how many birds have black feathers? So it's 12 of them. So 12 is our numerator. And then out of how many birds that had black feathers? So black feathers is 12. And then out of how many birds in total? There were 16. So 16 is our denominator. So that means 12 out of the 16 birds had black feathers. So 2 birds have blue feathers. So let's make a fraction for that. So 2 would be our numerator, and our denominator would be 16 because there's 16 birds in total. So 2/16 is how many birds had blue feathers. And then 2 birds have red feathers. So we have to make a fraction for that one as well. So it'd be the same as the blue feathers one. So 2 would become our numerator and 16 our denominator. Now we're going to make these into the simplest fractions. We're going to make them smaller. So we have 12/16. So what can we make that into? What can both numbers be divided by? The highest number that they can all be divided by. So we know that they can be divided by 2. We know that they can be divided by 4. And I think that's all that we can do. So 4 is the biggest number. So we're going to divide 12 divided by 4, which is equal to 3. And then 16 divided by 4, which is equal to 4. So our new fraction is 3/4. And that is the smallest fraction we can make for that one. Now let's do the 2/16 for the blue feathers. So we know that 2 and 16 can both be divided by 1, and they can both be divided by 2, but that is all that we can do. So 2 is our biggest one, so we're going to divide by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So 1/8, which is the smallest fraction. It's a simple fraction. And now we have to do that again for 2/16 for our red feathers. So we know that we're dividing by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So 1/8 for red feathers as well. So now we're going to create a circle graph using these simple fractions. So the feather colors of birds in Miss Van Leeuwenhoek's backyard is our title. And we have our circle. Ignore the black line through the middle of the circle right now. So we have our green circle. So our green circle represents the total amount of birds. So all 16 birds is represented by this one big green circle. But now we have to divide it into different groups so that we have the black feathers and the blue feathered birds and the red feathered birds. So we know that, let's start with our biggest fraction right now, which is 3/4, which is our black feathered birds. So we know that there has to be 3 out of the 4 things colored in. So let's divide our circle into 4 equal parts. So there we go. We have it divided into 4 parts. And out of those 4 parts, how many are going to be turning black now? 3 of them, because there's 3/4. So 3 of our quarters of our little green triangles have become black. And we're going to label that right away as birds with black feathers. So now we have 1/4 left. So we have 1/4 left. But we aren't working with 4 anymore. We're working with the bottom denominator of 8 because both our blue and red feathered birds are 1 over 8. So to get to 8 from 4, we times by 2, or we divide by 2 coming from 8 to 4. So we're going to split our last remaining green triangle here into 2, because 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. So we have 2 equal triangles here now in the green, and one of those have to become blue because 1 out of 8. So if we would have divided the whole circle into 8, this blue triangle would have been one of those pieces. And we're right away going to label it as birds with blue feathers. So we have birds with black feathers as a nice big part of the circle, and then we have birds with blue feathers as a small part of the circle. And then we have one last part of the circle that hasn't been filled in yet. And we're going to fill it in with our red spot because it's an eighth of the circle. It's 1 over 8, 1 part out of 8 parts of the circle. So that would become our birds with red feathers. So make sure you always label your parts of the circle, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So we have our black section, which is birds with black feathers, our blue section, which is birds with blue feathers, and our red section, which is birds with red feathers. So we have now made our circle graph. That's all that we have to do. We have a title and we have labels and we have put the fractions into the circle in the proper way. So looking at our circle graph, can you tell me which of the birds with whatever color feathers I see most in our backyard, in my backyard? So we see the birds with black feathers because it takes up most of the circle. So the birds with black feathers I see a lot more than the birds with different colored feathers. So then which 2 birds do I see the same amount in our backyard? Do we have the same amount of these birds? Birds with blue feathers and birds with red feathers. We see the exact same amount. There's 2 of each in the backyard. And that's what this circle graph is telling us. All right, grade 4, that's all I have for you guys today. Bye.